Sit back, grab a cup of hot cocoa, and relax. You're about to hear a Christmas story like no other Christmas story you've heard before. The Bread Family Christmas. The fact remains that very little is known about the origins of the Bread family. Their ancestry can be traced all the way back to the days of Moses and the leavened lineage of the Mannas. A long time ago, the wind was howling, snow was falling, and it was a very, very cold Christmas Eve night. Corn and gingerbread were busily preparing for holiday guests to arrive for their annual Christmas celebration. You see, the Breads were blessed with 6 little muffins, each one embracing unique individual personalities. Blueberry, the oldest, never ceased to leave an imprint everywhere she went. Banana Nut loved to tell jokes, but he couldn't always keep it together. English was the third-born muffin and had a split sense of humor. No doubt about it, Chocolate was certainly a chip off the old block. Fourth in line was Bran. He was nicknamed the Peacemaker because he always tried to avoid confusion and much preferred for everything to run smooth. Last but not least was Pumpkin, the baby of the family, and what a touch of spice she added. Excitement was in the air as the little muffins anxiously awaited the arrival of, well, you know who. However, the excitement was less than a reality for Cornbread. He was stressed and worried because the troubled economy made raising 6 little muffins difficult. It goes without saying that times were tough for the Breads. Everyone was cutting back and tightening their belts, or at least trying to. Many Breads were being sliced away from everything they had known. Day after day, Cornbread would roll into the factory because they needed the dough. Through it all, Gingerbread never seemed overly concerned. She went about her sweet way, smiling through the worst of times. Inside the little canister they called a house, Gingerbread always made everyone feel a little bit better and could always transform a bad day into a good one. Gingerbread made sure that the little muffins got a quick nap earlier that day so that they would be wide awake for the festivities. After a couple of hours, Ginger sang, "Rise and shine." Waking up was a little difficult for the little muffins as they seemed to be stuck in the warmth of their surroundings, but a little bit of careful nudging and they were ready to greet everyone. It wouldn't be long before the in-laws, the Loaves, would arrive. This added to Cornbread's stress. Their wry sense of humor was never received well, and most of the time they ended up behaving like heels. Yet year after year, Cornbread kept hoping that this would be the year things would be different. As customary, breads from all over the country would soon be arriving from east to west and everywhere in between. Aunt Claire and Cousin Peto were the first to arrive. Uncle Crumpet soon followed. Uncle Crumpet always made Ginger nervous because sometimes he would arrive a little half-baked. The relative entourage included Biscuit, who had obviously packed on a few extra layers but was jolly and fluffy as ever. Sabata, who traveled all the way from Italy. Sourdough, well, he showed up angry. And Grandma Pumpernickel was a crusty old bread, but you couldn't help but love her. Time moved quickly, and soon everyone arrived. Gingerbread's house was filled with breads. More than 3 dozen were gathered around the oven. The clock ticked ever so slowly as the little muffins' anticipation grew. The little muffins were almost crumbling with excitement when suddenly a loud pop was heard outside the little house, followed by a giggle. It was time, the moment they had been waiting for. There he was, easily identifiable by his characteristic hat, shirt, and no-pants ensemble. Yes, it was the famous Doughboy himself, delivering goodies fresh from the oven. He spoke not a word, but the giggles were endless. Doughboy was soon out the door, on to the next oven, but they heard him exclaim, as he soared out of sight, "Happy baking to all, and to all a good night."